everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's been 2 years since I posted my last 2 videos, and it has been a wild 2 years. So to recap, the very first video I posted was about trying to find a buyer for my Tropical Mega Battle deck that was like the VS series cards in English that I received for attending the Tropical Mega Battle tournament. At this tournament, all the kids were given the same exact deck, but in their home language. And so I received the English one, and we all played and had a really great time. I was able to go to that event by winning the first world championship in 2002 that was located in Seattle in the 10 and under age group. Wizards of the Coast had owned and ran the organized play for Pokemon during that time. And so after I found a buyer for my deck, I decided I really wanted to get back into the game at that point. My son was learning how to read at the time and was starting to take an interest in the cards. And so we decided to send out little invites to his class and the elementary school to see if we couldn't start a beginning Pokemon League for them. As I noticed, one of the big things is that there's more masters playing than juniors and seniors. And it was hard to go to a league and have my son play against masters, which he was okay with, but I really wanted him to be able to play with kids his age. And so we had a great turnout that summer, and he loved it and requests that we do it again this summer. And so putting it on the to-do list, and we will find a place for that coming soon. And as well as my daughter, now she can attend as well. She's starting kindergarten this year and also wants to learn how to play. So I'll make her a very basic deck where she doesn't have to read too much. And so that'll be exciting. And so after starting that, I decided I kind of wanted to get more competitive. I found out that Worlds was going to be in Japan that year. And so I decided to fly to Fresno and compete in that regionals. I knew I wasn't going to do too well, but it would give me kind of this idea of what the competitive scene was like now, because I knew it was going to be different. I just didn't know how different. Like when I showed up, I was blown away by the attendance. So when I played in regionals, there was maybe 100 players, maybe just over that. And this was like double to triple that, and blew me away. Absolutely. It's insane how many masters are playing now. And so I played in that, and one of the biggest changes that I've noticed for ruling, and everyone kind of made fun of me for it, is during my first round, it came down to a tie. I had taken more prizes than my opponent, and time was called, and the turns went 1, 2, and 3, and we did that, and I was like, oh, thank goodness, I still, had taken more prizes than my opponent, so I circled win, and he was like, no, it's a tie, and I was like, but I have more prizes taken. Like, we're not the same. And he's like, you have to finish the entire game for it to count. And that's when I really got rattled, because now, like, my deck, I'm a slow player as I'm still having to like read some of these cards that people are playing because I hadn't either seen them or I wasn't quite familiar with it. And so I really needed to play faster and decide when to fold or when not to fold to continue on to the next game. And that in itself is like a learning curve. So that was interesting. But probably my biggest takeaway is coming back into the community and feeling like I never left. So I grew up with a lot of the Pokemon people that are still in it. They are my Pokemon family. It's great to see them still in it. They're either judging or working for Pokemon or still playing even. And so it was the best feeling in the world to come back into that community, feeling like I never left and I missed it more than I could ever admit. And so I'm excited to announce that I will be at the regionals in Orlando. It's a little closer to home. And I look forward to seeing everyone there. And if you want to test online, or maybe you're in Central Florida, let me know and we can find a place to practice. Or if you know of a good league, let me know. So yeah, I attended that regionals. I then booked my flight for the Worlds in Japan and my hotel and got all the spectator badges. My sister even booked the flight to come with me. And I was pregnant with my third at the time. And about last minute, my doctor said, hey, I don't really recommend you going out of the country. So that was kind of a bummer for me. And I had later developed gestational diabetes, and my sugar levels were kind of crazy. And, she says it's supposed to be really hot in Japan. And because it's out of the country, as far as healthcare there, I don't know how that's going to line up with your, insurance or any of that. And it'd just be safer for you to stay in the country. So regrettably, not regrettably, just unfortunately, canceled, and hopefully Pokemon won't take as long at having a world championship in Japan again, and I will go to the next one. So after that, we decided, okay, we've got baby on the way. Let's put our focus toward that. And we had sold all the baby items, the bassinet, the swings, all that stuff after my second. And so we were like, okay, well, we don't have all this stuff yet. Baby 3 isn't born yet. And we've always considered moving out of Seattle. And so we kind of took this opportunity as, hey, we don't have 3 kids yet. We don't have the crib all up and all of the baby gear. So let's make that move now. And so we decided to move across the country and set up a new life for us. And we couldn't be happier. Seattle was kind of wearing on us. The weather there is very dreary most months out of the year. So you might have 3 good months during the summer or spring where you can actually enjoy going outside or see the sun. And we just wanted to change the pace. And so we did it, and we're here and we're loving it. So that kind of brings us to today. I had my little girl, perfectly healthy. So now I've got 3 kiddos that, keep me in and out of urgent care more times than I want to admit. But it's okay. Love them all the same. But they all are healthy and perfectly fine. And my parents decided to move out here as well to get a change of pace. And they are loving it just the same. And I am currently working on kind of a new business. I don't have all my ducks in a row yet, but I do plan to soon, and I hope I can share that with you very, very soon. It is TCG related, and so I'm very, very excited to get this ball rolling and see it take off. And yeah, so these videos that I have that are going to be coming out, they are going to be about my journey. That was one of the biggest questions I got asked was after posting those videos, they'd reach out, hey, can I interview you? I want to know what it was like playing during the Neo Genesis era, or what was it like being 10 and winning worlds? What was your matches like? How was it? And I was actually blown away at how many people want to know. There's not a lot of information out there on it. And so I decided to do these videos. And while doing these videos, I have some items from those events that I would like to sell as well. And I know the next question I'm going to get asked is, why do you want to sell these items? They are like gold. Well, for one, for my business, I want to be able to put money toward it. I want to invest it. And so I'm going to let these items go. They are just in my closet. They're not being showcased. They aren't, being displayed anywhere. And I think that there's a lot of people out there that have the ability to show these items off without the risk of a toddler throwing a ball at it or using it as a coloring page, etc. So I just think that they're not doing anything for me in the closet. May as well have some fun with it, tell my story, showcase the items from those time periods, and sell them that way. So, without further ado, I'm going to take you back in time to when I was about 8 or 9 years old, and Blockbusters was still around, and a game came out called Pokemon Snap. So I had no Pokemon cards, no idea what Pokemon was, didn't know their names, other than maybe watching the TV show around that time. But even then, it was just this commercial came up about Pokemon Snap. And the game was you were a photographer in this little buggy, and it would move around, and you would throw the items at the Pokemon and try to catch the best shot. And so I had begged my dad for probably a month straight to let me rent this game from Blockbuster. And he finally agreed one day, and I took it home, and I put it in the N64, and I played it non-stop. And my dad looked over, and he kind of took an interest in it. His hobby was photography, and so we would pass the controller back and forth, trying to beat each other's scores or beat our personal bests. And during that time, there was also a contest going on at Blockbuster, and it was called Take Your Best Shot. And if you won the contest by submitting in like the best shot you have, you could win a trip to Australia for a safari. Oh, and then like there's other runner-up prizes like Game Boys and Pokemon items. And so we did end up submitting. And I do have a few of these stickers. So you would take your cartridge in and you could print them out like your best shots. And there was like a little form. You would put your sticker on the form. You'd take off whichever shot you wanted and put it on the form and mail it in. And so I'm pretty sure I have, yeah, I'm almost positive this is probably the shot that we submitted. Sorry, it's going to take a minute to zoom. There we go. So Mew was probably, I think, the highest one that you could get. We had the guidebook at the time, and we would even, you can see like the others are missing a lot of them. So we would put our best shots in the guidebook, and if we had reached like the max number of points for that, then we would like star it and know that, okay, we don't need to focus on that Pokemon character anymore. So we did submit that Mew to the contest, and we were one of the finalists, but not like in the finals. So there was like a ton of other people that got the same notice. And I'm almost positive it was a 1,500-word essay that you had to submit and telling a story about Mew. I could be wrong. My dad might post in the comments if I'm correct or not. Or maybe you did this contest and you could explain if I'm right or wrong. But I do know that it was an essay. I just don't know exactly what it was on, but I'm almost positive it was Mew. So we typed up our essay, submitted it, but did not get any further than that. But that's okay, because that's where my journey started. Like, that's what kind of opened the door to what is Pokemon. And so it kind of started off by like, we would go to Toys R Us and just kind of snoop around back when the store was open. And we noticed there's Pokemon cards on the shelf. And the other thing too is like, I would find random cards, like at school, they would be around. And I remember my very first card I found, it was in a mall. I was just walking around. It was just like laying face down. I picked it up and it was a Grimer. And it was like the Grimer, like I want to say it's probably from Fossil. Yeah, that sounds right. Fossil. And so he was kind of like my very first card. He was beat up, just left in the mall. But yeah, one of those other times we had gone into Toys R Us and we saw the packs on the shelves and starter decks. And so my dad had purchased them, and we noticed there's a flyer stating that Toys R Us had leagues on Saturdays for you to come and play and learn. So that following Saturday, we took the cards. We didn't really even open them. We just waited to go to that league to learn. And it was packed. They had one person working the area that was sectioned off, and there was maybe 6 or 8 tables, and they were filled, and kids were playing on the floor. And so we tried to find somebody to help us learn, and the one person that was working there was so busy, like people were just yelling things at him, like, I won one, or I won 2 games, or is this, whatever. It was like, is this a good trade? And so he was overwhelmed, and we were like, yeah, this guy doesn't have time to help us learn. So we were just like, kind of asking around, is there anyone here that might help us learn how to play the game? And there's 2 players who did end up teaching us the basics. And so we went home, kind of played more, and we just kept returning to that same league and playing there. And if we had a question that we could ask, like a quick question, it wasn't like this long, how do I play again? It was, okay, we got the basics. Now, how do we play a little better? And so we would go to that league, and then that opened up to, well, there's other leagues too. So there's a Wizards of the Coast that has a game back when they had stores in the mall that you could go to. So we started attending those and getting better and better and building our collection and changing our decks. And so one of the first major tournaments that came to town was the Pokemon Tour tournament. And that tournament was a qualifier tournament to get you to go into a Super Trainer Showdown. And this one was for the East Coast and New Jersey. And this was back in 2001. And so, we entered that tournament, or I did. Back then it was just 10 and under and 11 to 14-year-olds that could play. It was 2 age divisions. And so I entered in the 10 and under age group and played. And I had a deck that was kind of considered like a haymaker deck. It had multiple colors, and you would try to play into your opponent's weakness, or you have the resistance to them, one of the two. And all out of what I can remember that I played, I had Clefable, who had Metronome that copied people's attacks. I had Scyther from Jungle, and Hitmonchan and Hitmonlee, and Kangaskhan, which I absolutely loved because back then you didn't have the dice to roll, you had the coins. And I loved flipping that coin as high up in there as I can because it was just a light plastic coin that you got out of the little theme deck boxes. And then, we didn't have dice for the damage counters. It was little pebbles for 10. And so he was my favorite. Loved playing him. In fact, that's probably one of my biggest memories is playing. And I'm pretty sure there's a photo out there of me and of Zane Nelson. And we're sitting on our feet, just having the time of our lives, just flipping the coin as high as we can in there. So he was my absolute favorite card to play. And I was kind of excited to see him somewhat back as Mega Gigaston in this current format. So, side note, my other favorite character that was in my deck was Steelix from Neo Genesis. And he was like a tank. So most of the HPs were 70 or 80. They didn't hardly get higher than that, except for Steelix. Steelix was just this metal big tank guy. And he had specific metal energy that you can only have 4 of in the deck. It wasn't like you could have as many as you wanted. It had a special ability. And when that metal energy is attached to a metal Pokemon, it would minus your opponent's attacks by 10 to him. So if you had 4, you could stack them and it would be minus 40, which hardly ever happened because it's really hard to find those cards. There wasn't a lot of searching for those specific cards. And so that was the deck I ran and did really well with it. And there was a very pivotal moment during that tournament that could have changed my entire course of my whole Pokemon journey. So I had sat down, and it was, I think, just the round before top 8, or maybe it was top 8. I don't remember, but it was you only played 1 round with each opponent, and if you lost, you were out. So it dwindled fairly quickly, but there was a lot of kids there. And I sat down, and he was playing a Sneasel deck. And I had 2 basics out to start with. I remember that. And he had an entire bench to start with. And Sneasel, if you don't know who he is, he's from Neo Genesis. And his attack is based off of how many Pokemon are on your bench. And like my Steelix, who has metal energy, Sneasel had darkness energy that had the ability to add 10 more damage to the active for each darkness energy that was on him. And so I sat down, and I don't think I made it past round 3 and the game was over, which shocked me because most of the time my games were the longest games ever. I don't know if I just played slowly or what, but I seemed to always be the last one to finish. And so finishing so fast, I was just like, what happened? I get it. This guy's really good, but man, so I was kind of bummed. I remember starting to pick up my cards, and I got up, and the whole crowd around the outside erupted. It was a lot of the parents that stayed to watch and the kids that were there. And they're like, do not leave that table. You just need to leave things as is. Do not pick them up. So I listened to the crowd because it was just overwhelming. It was it started with just one person, and then that person, it was just don't leave, don't touch your cards. And I was just like, okay, what did I do wrong? What's going on? And my opponent, however, scooped everything up as fast as he could because the crowd had known that he had to have stacked his deck. And I remember people saying, I don't remember seeing him shuffle his deck. And looking back, it was yeah, he was oh, I already shuffled or something like that. And back then, nobody cut. The entire day, I didn't cut anyone's deck or shuffle it. It was just, we just played. It wasn't that big of a deal. But if I just think constantly back to what if that crowd didn't erupt? And so the judge, they got the judge in there, and the judge had voted that we play another game. And he sits there and he will shuffle both players' decks. But my opponent was obviously not happy about that, saying how it wasn't fair, but then still kind of like had the attitude of like, whatever, I'll just win again anyway. So we played again, and I did end up winning that round and moving on and winning the qualifier tournament for the Super Trainer Showdown. And it's shocking that like the judge made that call, or that the crowd had stood up for me, because what if they didn't? What if they like looked on and was just like, oh, it's just a kid's game. Like, too bad. Like, I'm sorry, that sucks, but it happened. Like, or like, what if that judge is like, I wasn't there to see it and I can't just restart this match, or something along those lines. Like, it's crazy to think that that crowd that had stood up for me made everything possible. So that's kind of nuts to think about. So I do have some items from that Pokemon tour, and the first ones are going to be the hats. And I have two hats. One is mine, and one was probably my dad's that he got because it was just a one-day thing. At least I think it was one day. I might need to double check that, or maybe someone can clarify. Again, I was 9, so it is what it is. But I wore one of these hats on that day, and I also have a shirt. Oh, I'll show you the back. It's just a plain black cap, nothing else fancy. But I have the shirt as well that I cannot remember if I wore or not. I want to say that I didn't, but there is the tour emblem, and then I think, yep, it's on this side. It says Super Trainer Showdown Qualifier tournament. And on the back is the Neo Genesis characters, my favorite. And so this was a size medium. It was adults. And like I said, I don't know if I wore that one or not, but I do know I wore one of the hats that day. And I just, one thing with Pokemon back then is not a lot of girls played, and they didn't have a lot of girly things. So I just remember one of the big things that I got made fun of for was, you look like a boy, you're always wearing like their stuff and it's huge on you, and like just getting made fun of all the time. But I know I have a picture of me wearing it, so I will post that in the comments when I do come across it. So yeah, if you're interested in any of those items, just post down below in the comments and I will get back to you. Or you can post your offer on it, so that way we can kind of like have a bidding if other people are interested in it as well. The other item I have that was not part of the Pokemon tour, it was part of the leagues that I had gone to. You would have a booklet, which I used to have. I'm not sure if we do or yet. Not if we do not still have it or do have it. Is the badges. So back then when you went to League, you would have a booklet, and you would get 2 stamps for every win and a stamp for a loss. And then you would hit these milestones and you would receive a badge. Kind of similar to like the badges, well, not similar, exactly the same badges that Ash Ketchum would try to get as he would go and defeat the gym leaders in the little cartoon. So here's the full set. And in the middle here is a pin that I received from a player at the Tropical Mega Battle event in Hawaii. And he gave me that pin as a gift. He was, ranking-wise, we were the same in Japan versus as I was in the US. So he had done equally as well as I had. And he was the nicest person. And we could not speak to each other. We didn't have phones just whip out and like translate to each other. So we had a translator kind of talk and explain that to us, that we were like uneven rank. And so he gave me that pen as well as a few others, and he was the nicest boy ever. So again, I'll show this again. I will also have pictures down below in the comments. But this is the full set of the pins that you could receive if you played back in that day. And so that whole display is up for sale. And if you're interested, again, just post down below. And that kind of concludes my first little bit, my kind of life-altering moment in my Pokemon history, because if I had not had that crowd stand up for me in that moment. And if that judge did not do a rematch and sat there and shuffled the decks, I would not have gone on to the Super Trainer Showdown in New Jersey, where I took second place back-to-back both days, which then got me to go to Worlds in 2002. Which I then won, and then got me to go to the Tropical Mega Battle in Hawaii. And, I didn't just stop there. I went on and they invited me back to Worlds in 2004. There was a gap between 2002 and 2000. The gap was 2003. It switched hands from Wizards of the Coast and went to Nintendo for organized play. So in 2003, they did not have a tournament. And so I got invited back to the tournament in 2004. And I didn't do too well. I mean, I think I did okay. I couldn't honestly tell you what I placed. But I went to every World since then until I think 2006 was my last Worlds that I had attended. So quite a big Pokemon journey, and then in and out, just local things since then. So yeah. So in my next video, look forward to that one. That one's going to be more focused on the Super Trainer Showdown, what I played, my experiences, and the items going up for sale from that event. So if you're interested, do a notification bell so that way you're notified. I'll also repost it on Facebook and pretty much every social media platform that I own to try to get the word out for those. And I just enjoy meeting all of you and seeing your responses. And I thank you for watching, and I hope you keep watching the next ones as well. Bye.